The Truro Murders were a series of murders that were committed from 1976 to 1977 by Christopher Worrell and his accomplice James Miller. Worrell and Miller unfortunately took the lives of 8 women before Worrell was killed by a car crash in 1977, with one of the women as a passenger. This permanently stopped the Truro Murders. Due to his past crimes as well as his death resulting in the lack of murders, Worrell was found guilty, despite not being able to pay for his crimes. In Truro, 1978, a man by happenstance discovered the remains of a woman, causing him to call the police. This of course got their attention, leading many officers out into Truro, and with more investigation, they found more human remains. These remains were the bones of the victims: Veronica Knight, Tanya Kenny, Juliet Mikita, Sylvia Pittman, Vicky Howell, Connie Jordan, and Deborah Lamb. Veronica was 18 and the first victim. Tanya was 15 and the second. Juliet, Sylvia, and Connie were 16 and the third, fourth, and sixth victims. Vicky was 26 and the fifth victim. And Deborah was the 7th victim at the age of 20. The final victim was Deborah Scusi, who died in the car crash along with Worrell. It was suspected that all murders were stranglings. However, the 7th victim, Deborah Lamb, was believed to have been buried alive. All remains were recovered and taken as evidence to be analysed. Once analysed, detectives deducted the similarities between the remains and the missing women cases from Adelaide that spanned at most a year. After discovering what came of the missing women, the police needed to officially determine who the murderer, or rather who the murderers, were. Although a year prior to the discovery of the bodies, Worrell and Scusi were killed in the car accident and no missing people ended up buried in Truro after that point, that wasn't enough evidence to appoint Worrell as the murderer. However, Miller, whom was a passenger in the car accident that miraculously lived, confessed to Worrell's former girlfriend Amelia of his infatuation with killing. Amelia gave this information to the police, which led to Miller's arrest and a trial that resulted in him getting a life sentence in prison. During the trial, a lot of mysteries and secrets were unearthed about the situation. One of these being the true antics that actually happened when Worrell and Miller were picking up women for murder. Miller would leave the car and go for a walk, while Worrell would have sex with the women without consent and proceed to strangle them while doing so. Miller admitted to the trial that he believed that the two were originally only working together only to rape women. However, Worrell started murdering the women after, which was not a part of their plan. Miller was found guilty of 6 of the 7 murders, which led to his sentencing. He died of terminal cancer in 2008. Professor of Criminology Paul Wilson has stated that if Worrell didn't die in the car crash, the Truro Murders could have become more like a Truro massacre. My parents grew up around the time of the Truro Murders, and although not affected by them, the headlines and stories of the events have been permanently burned into their brains. If my parents are still thinking about the occurrence of these murders to this day, I can only imagine the pain that the parents of the victims are still dealing with. The Truro Murders were a series of murders committed by Christopher Worrell and James Miller, which took the lives of 8 women. Although Worrell lost his life before he could pay for his actions, Miller was sentenced to life in prison, where he died 30 years after the murders took place.